On the short-term horizon, XRP is showing us a rounded bottom. We really would like to know how this turned out, so we'll have to take a step back. We'll have to look at the pattern, the trend line, the supports, and the price action, because it actually is becoming a little bit more interesting. Even though we got rejected at the resistance of this pattern, we're still holding on to a support. We are taking that support, which means this breakout is now valid. So a bounce off from that level will enable the price to break through this range, which will actually start the next move to the upside. So remember, we need to see a breakout. So on a short-term horizon, this is the pattern which we are focusing on. While we look at Bitcoin and the market, say dollar is slowing down, dollar is actually getting resisted, it's slowing down, it's actually taking a resistance. While the crypto is taking a support, dollar is going for this. If you remember what we talked in yesterday's video, we were highlighting the same fact, like, okay, we completed the short-term three-wave structure, we're going to come back down in a corrective movement, which means you now have room for the crypto market to do well. But things get a little bit confusing while you actually look at the stock market. It's slowing down with all these debt limit. Fear is slowly being pushed into the market. But when you actually look at Bitcoin, this is the pattern which you're observing. Yeah, we are inside a channel. But as soon as you zoom in, you get to see the fact that, yeah, we tried to get into the pattern once, we got rejected. Right now, we didn't actually go way lower. We are staying close to that level, giving it another try to see whether the sellers are still active and strong. So in next 4 hours, you are literally watching whether we get rejected here or we break back in. This is going to be a critical time as you further dive deep into the crypto market, because then you look at the altcoins, it's actually showing you the signs that, okay, I'm testing the resistance. Maybe I'm going to break higher. But if it breaks this level, what are we looking further, right? The next level of support, the next level of resistance, where will we go? How high can we go with this breakout? Welcome to the Scientific Investor family, where the normal retail guys get to learn how to become the next top 10% of this world. Right now, as you look at the macro, it does show you some concern. Now, this is macro and you need to understand it so that now when you look at the micro, you get a little bit more clarity. Say here, while you look at the retail money market funds, it's increasing. And if you go back and look at this, while we were going up before any of these major crashes, we actually can literally observe the fact that the market does this before that, right? You go back to the great financial crisis or the corona drop, it shows you like, okay, the rates in the banks are so low, whereas the rates are slowly going up in the money market. So we are jumping onto that end. And in some of these countries, rates are still going up, right? And it's like this 12th straight meeting where rates are actually being pushed higher. So one of the things you have to understand is when that's going up and you get to see the claims, you know, the jobless claims and others going up, now you have a concern, because when you actually go beyond this point, you have seen that over the last 20 years, 30 years, 1990, you get that. 2000, you get that. 2008, you get that. 2020, you get that. So if you look at this, that still shows you the possibility of a macro move. And then on the macro side of crypto, you see companies doubling down on crypto, saying, okay, we think the bottom is coming closer, we are buying here. So they are actually trying to get as much as possible. One of the reasons for that is as you look at these charts, you'll actually see like, okay, the equity flows have flattened. You're not actually getting a lot of money jumping into the equity line. And this goes back all the way here. Like each time before a drop in the market, we see that flattening. We see that distribution pattern. And if you see a distribution pattern again, then most likely you're going to repeat the history, right? And that means you're going to watch markets melting at a pace which we haven't seen recently. Now, if you're in the market watching how the corona pandemic went on to kill the markets, now it would be something similar. But if we get some more banks dropping, that's going to be painful. Now, we will actually dive in to a short-term chart first. Say, we just talked about the possibility of a break to the upside, a move to the upside. How likely is that going to be? If we actually really focus on just this range, we now know that, okay, we went up, we got rejected at this range, so we do have a resistance overhead. So we'll put that on red. Now, look at this on a little bit macro perspective, right? Keeping it in the micro chart. Now you'll actually clearly watch that, okay, these ranges are actually acting as either a support or a resistance. So even if you break this level, you really have an overhead resistance range waiting for you at that level. Now, first time we actually went through such a range here, we tested that and got rejected. Great. But then the next time you went to test that, you broke that one and made that as a support. So it will be positive if we can break this range. It will be positive to watch how the market evolves. One of the stuff here for Bitcoin is that, okay, you actually look at Bitcoin and say, we're still inside the pattern, we are correcting to the downside, it's all good, it's all fine. But think about this. If there is going to be a market move where dollar drops and these risk on assets actually take off, then the next level you're looking at is a major resistance here, which is going to be a primary level, say somewhere close to 27, 28, after which you're looking for 28,500, right? So you do have a couple of resistance which you need to keep in mind as we try to maneuver in the market. Because if you're actually trading these, now these levels are going to be of real importance for you. While you look at the Bitcoin dominance, say, it actually gives you a little bit more clarity here. Say, for example, if you see the Bitcoin dominance dropping, now that gives you clarity that money is actually moving on to the altcoins, right? If you actually look at Bitcoin dominance, it's actually slowing down, but we are still maintaining this level of support. So that's actually positive for Bitcoin, thinking like, okay, we're trying to push lower, but whatever happens, we're actually holding on to this level. We're still holding on to this engulfing candle here, which seems a little bit positive for Bitcoin. Now, that's again on the short-term narrative while we look at things. Because if you actually remember, the way we discuss about this is based on the macro supports. If you see the macro support here, putting the argument that we are going to test this one is fine. It won't be bad because we just got rejected there. We would still have some supply or people got stuck at that range. So we may actually go test that level. Now, in that case, if we are breaking this level, we are like, okay, we are not coming back down to test this support. That's super bullish, right? But then again, the question becomes like, okay, what is the probability for such a scenario, right? For such a scenario to unveil, now technically speaking, you now literally have to wait to see this level breaking. This is one of the reasons why recently, when the market actually shaked everyone out and dropped heavily during these days here, we actually bought in, we added on to our trades. Because if this breaks lower, we still keep our dry powder to load up another 100%. But if the market decides to bounce back from here, we are already in, we are already average down to the bottom here because that happens to be a short-term support. Now, if that breaks through and reach a macro support, that's again positive because you're here as a net buyer of any assets. Say, especially while you look at XRP right now, the pattern which we just discussed while we were starting this is the rounded bottom. So we want to actually see whether we will break this pattern to the upside. To take a price point, here that's going to be 0.4636. If you are breaking that level, it is now positive on the short-term. Traders are trying to push this to the upside. Now, the primary question becomes like, okay, what are the odds of that? So if you're actually focusing on the RSI, we are at the verge. If we manage to break this leg, now we have a higher odds. But then you look at the price action, right? You got a doji candle, which actually suggests, okay, that's an indecision. However, just after that, you're right now getting an engulfing candle moving to the upside, which happens to have a long tail to the downside. Last couple of times, whenever you got these long tails, now you're following this through upside, which is positive, right? Now, one of the things you have to understand is the price came lower down this point. It went up, it got rejected. Next time when it came down, it did not actually come to this level, right? It didn't end up here. Rather, it went back up and closed here, which means we got active buyers pushing the price back up in this range. Again, this is a short-term chart. Great. So to understand the odds for this, you actually slowly zoom out. And on a 4-hour chart, you get to see, okay, there is a possibility that we are watching a double bottom evolving here. And I'm like, okay, that's good. Meaning without a major drop to the downside, if the price is making a double bottom and bouncing back up, it's going to bring in FOMO for sure. It's going to bring in a lot of people who are waiting on the sidelines for now. But then you enter on a daily chart and you see, okay, we just got an engulfing candle to the downside, a 3-candle reversal pattern. So you need a lot more to take that negative sentiment out of the market. Last time you got this pattern, it didn't actually end up quite bullish. It continued way lower, coming back down here. So that pattern happened at 0.48. You ended back up at 0.41. So you get the point, right? So if you really need to see a breakout, now you need to break through 0.48. That's going to be difficult. But if you are going to see a continuation pattern to the downside and you're a seller or at least a buyer who's waiting to buy this asset at a lower price point, now you're waiting to see this range. So on a daily, you come here, you mark that range which you want to watch or you're going to observe, and then you go on a short-term chart. So if that scenario plays out, that means you're going to come back up somewhere close to 0.4685 or even somewhere close to this range and then get rejected. Now, that's still possible because if you consider the fact that we went up in a wave cycle pattern, now doing this may not be bad. That still can be bullish because that's an ABC pattern, which is a corrective leg, which is again positive. Now, that's the short-term scenario we talked about. If you actually jump back onto a weekly chart, guys, this is what we are watching right now. The price is still above the last week's fluctuation. Last week itself was an engulfing candle, which erased entire week of fluctuation and went up to touch last 2 weeks before that. So the price staying here during this week gives you more and more odds that, okay, once this thing is done, you're actually going to see this price action coming back to retest this range of 0.5, 0.58, and then most likely break through that. Because look at how the RSI is pointing you towards. It is interesting because when you actually go on to a monthly chart, what you're observing right now is a retest, right? And on a monthly, remember, we don't have too much time. In a week, the month is over, and most likely you're observing a hammer. Right, the price came lower, but buyers were interested in to buy this asset at a lower price point. They pushed the price so high. So yes, a retest is still possible, which is still good, great. So if you wait for the retest and you get a buy at 0.4, great. That's great position in the market. But now you need to ask like, okay, what if that doesn't happen, right? That's why you actually focus on the short-term scenario to understand whether you're breaking through that range. And if you are breaking through this particular range, what's your ROI? Meaning, what's the measured move for this particular pattern? Now, you're not talking about a 30x. Instead, it's a short-term pattern. We are looking for around 18 to 20%, which would be somewhere close to 0.56. So it's actually taking you back to the recent local high or close to that swing. And that would be interesting to see how we react at that point, because on a weekly chart, if you remember, we're here. We are already making an engulfing candle, and if we manage to get back up here, that kind of erases a lot of people who are looking bearish at this moment. Because if you actually look in the price action and saying, okay, there was a possibility like this, but with this drop, I'm not taking it, and the price actually bounces back up, even at this range, you'll say, okay, most likely we are going up. Most likely. Maybe that's too much elongated. Maybe we are going up like this. that still is going to be bullish. So while you are in the market, understand all these scenarios. Go on a short-term chart, at least a 4-hour chart, and see how the price action is evolving. If it's actually breaking through, giving you a higher high, higher low structure, now think like something just changed, right? Even if you zoom out, try to keep the macro level and you're looking at this, you can easily identify the fact that, okay, something changed here. You actually did this structure. Great, it's bullish. After which, you actually did something like this. Each time you go up, you push back down, base, enter at that local highs, right? You try to make one level as a resistance, or the base make that as a resistance. They enter into selling positions. They push the price lower from that point, and the divergence in the RSI kind of gives you an edge over the market each time, because when you actually look at this, last time when you moved up here, you can watch that, how low the RSI actually went, dropping down to a candle close. You actually see like this. So the RSI did give you some divergence. And come back here, what we observed here was a price going to the upside, and the RSI kind of showed you I'm going down. So we have this advantage in the market. Right now, what is the chart showing you? A double bottom pattern, which is also being supported by the RSI. So it's going to be really healthy to wait, watch, and observe how things are evolving. Because on the other side, you need to see dollar slowing down. You need to see a Bitcoin going up, but not too much. Meaning a lot of money should be coming onto the altcoin market rather than into the Bitcoin side of things. And then you will see real fluctuation happening. But when you actually go on the weekly chart and ask the same question about Ether, how confident are you about an upside move, which is drastically going to change the narrative? I think like, okay, we may see something, but most likely this is what we are doing now. We went up, we got a fake out, we're coming back down, and inside this candle here, we need to go back up and test that range, which would be somewhere close to 1875. So if we get up to 1875 and get rejected, that still is going to push the price to the downside. So guys, if you're here in the market and you're looking at all these things and you're understanding different assets in the market are showing opportunities right now, and you want further details about that, about all these assets inside your portfolio, then look at the Patreon. The link is given in the description below. So that's it for today, guys. If you received value, please do hit that like and subscribe button. I'll meet you guys on the next video. Bye for now.